Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Shue, the Old House Agent, and we are here at Barter Theatre in Abingdon, Virginia today. We're here with our friend Matt, and he's going to tell us all kinds of things about the history of this place and some spooky stories about the place, and we're going to explore the tunnel that's under the building that used to connect the Barter Theatre to what is now the Martha Washington. So as far as what I do, if you've never seen my videos, I am a real estate agent that specializes in historic houses, and I work at Prestige Homes of the Tri-Cities in Bristol, Tennessee. I'm licensed in Virginia and Tennessee, and I am the Old House Agent. There you go. So this is my friend Matt Campbell.
Hey Daniel, thanks for having me today. We're excited you're here at Barter.
We are certainly glad to be back here.
Yeah. So this is the Barter Theatre, founded in 1933 by Robert Porterfield. The building itself was actually built in 1831, so it's had a real long history. Porterfield grew up in Saltville and then came back down here during the Depression. He found that he and his friends in New York, who were actors, couldn't find work, obviously, so they came down. Saw an abundance of farmers who needed entertainment, and so they started to do shows. And part of doing shows was that they bartered. And so folks could bring food or livestock and all of that. So famously, the first donation was a pig. And in the first year, the actors collectively made $4.35, but they gained 303 pounds. And so there was a lot of different types of goods that came in and bartering that was happening. They famously asked for no more tomatoes because they had tried them in every way possible and weren't going to be able to eat anymore. But it really became a staple of the community at that point in time, and has been running continuously since, except for a small period during World War II where the theater did have to shut down. The building itself, again, was built in 1831 by Sinking Spring Church, or by Presbyterian Church at that point in time. The church itself, we're unsure if it was ever a service because the church divided, and now part of that church is actually over the hill here in Abingdon. And then we don't quite know what happened to the other sect of that church, but so we don't even know if a service was ever held in this building itself. So then the building had a lot of different lives. The Sons of Temperance took it over in the 1850s. They added a dance floor and a seating area inside so they could have dances. And then the front lobby was added in the 1890s by the town of Abingdon. And that was used as town hall, city hall. And so there's been dentists in there, there's been barber in there, there's been all kinds of different things that have gone through, and then the city used it for a long time as town hall.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, I knew a little bit about that, and I just recently, with your help, did a Facebook post about the early building.
Right.
And we can't find any old pictures of it or anything.
Yeah, and we've contacted a number of folks, and I know you were reaching out to folks, and unfortunately there's not a lot of photos pre-1900 of the building, probably for obvious reasons, right? And rural Virginia and horse and carriages and all those things. So we can't find a lot of images of that, but we know that certainly the building's been around for a long time and has a lot of history as part of it.
Yeah, I did find some possible evidence that there was a congregation here until 1837.
Oh, okay.
And that they merged and they actually joined to create the new church together at the surrender. Oh my gosh, I think of Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
On like the same day, so it's like this definite historical marker.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, there's so much history around the building itself, and of course with the Martha across the street, and like you said, we'll see the tunnel here in a second.
And so while we're up here to talk about that, the Martha, then it was built as a private home, but it became Martha Washington Girls School. Mm-hmm. And so it was a college that also served as a hospital during the Civil War. So that's why you all think that this tunnel exists.
That's right. So during the Civil War, it was a hospital, and there was sort of an agreement that nobody would attack hospitals. So the Confederate soldiers actually made the second and third floor for ammunition storage, since they wouldn't attack a hospital. So we believe, or our understanding is, that the tunnel is actually about moving ammunition there without being caught. Yeah. They were at one point, unfortunately, and there's some ghost stories around that of what happened, but that is the reason we think the tunnel is as crude as it is in terms of hand chiseled and the way the steps were made and the way the tunnel laid out itself.
That's neat. One thing, Abingdon has one thing, it's ghosts.
Apparently, that's what I hear. I've only been around about 2 years, but I've heard a lot of stories thus far.
I'm sure you'll have your own stories.
Maybe, yeah. Someday. So I know that there's plenty of stories about Bob Porterfield or Robert Porterfield here in the theater, and he would sit in the balcony boxes, which is his favorite place in the left, and folks would see him in his three-piece suit up there sometimes.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually lived not far from where I grew up, maybe 3 or 4 miles down the road.
Oh, yeah.
My school bus went by his house every day, and then he lived part of his childhood in the W.A. Stewart house in Saltville, and I actually sold that house a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
So I got
He's it's so fascinating because he came down here, and then in order to really boost the theater, he made the Barter Awards, and so he would go back up to New York and he would meet with famous people, and they would win a Barter Award, which included a Virginia ham, and then included a plot of land. So there's all these plots of land around Abingdon or close to Abingdon that were given as awards that folks, either never came down here or they gave away. Or even when I bought my house when we moved here, the closing agent was telling me a story about he was trying to figure out who owned this plot of land because it had been a Barter Award at one point in time, and they just needed, the deed rights in order to move forward with
That sounds like a Brian Ely story.
It is a Brian Ely story. Yeah, Brian did our closing. Yeah,
he knows everything about Abingdon.
he does. He does. So it's been fascinating to learn sort of all the things that he did, Porterfield, and obviously the company after that, in order to make Barter a mainstay in Abingdon and make sure that the arts were a huge part of what Abingdon had to offer. And I think it still is with us and William King and Arts Depot and these other places. But it's so fascinating for me as a person who's worked a little bit all over that there's so much history, not just with the Barter in this building, but the building itself in the town of Abingdon.
Yeah, I love that reuse aspect of it.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of it. And as we walk around, there's been a number of major renovations. Obviously, the addition of the lobby, and then there was an addition in the back. But 95, the Empire Theater, I don't know if you know this story or not. When Porterfield was here, he had got a message from the Empire Theater in New York, which was a Broadway theater. They said, we're going to demolish it. This was on a Friday. And they said, Monday, the wrecking ball comes. If you want anything, come up and get it. And so he had 12 guys from here and 6 trucks, and they drove up to New York, literally on a Friday night, to get into the theater, to take seats. They took carpets. They took light fixtures. There's an Edison board, a lighting board that we believe Edison created, that we still have a piece of. They put it all in these trucks and they brought it back down here. So for a long time, the seats that everybody sat in were from the Empire Theater in New York. So there was a remodel in 95, which removed what we call upper seating. So they cut the boxes out and moved the house further into a balcony seating situation. So did that one in 95, and then there was another one in the early 2000s, and then we just did one last year in 2023 and replaced all the seats in the same fashion, but now they're new.
Oh, they are.
But we kept some original Empire seats and had them refurbished, and so they're actually in the boxes still. That were Porterfield's favorite place.
I can relate to that. We would totally go to a theater and rip everything out on a Friday night.
Sure. Well, it's, and you think about it, it's such a great story. I mean, as even we look over here, that Gregory Peck drove here, this truck, have all these famous people who sort of come through here and have careers here, but still at the root of it, putting a bunch of guys in a truck to drive up to New York on a Friday because the building is going to be demolished Monday morning to get the things you need in order to make the show. Tenacious, yeah. And you wonder if it's still, if we still have that tenacity or not.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, let's walk through.
Sure.
And you can give us some history as we go, because you've shown me some cool things that I did not know about Barter.
Yeah. So again, the building was built in 1831 with the church, and then has had a number of lives in terms of the Sons of Temperances. They had dances here. They did a number of other things here. Then the town or the city hall took it over, built on this addition we're walking through right now. And even up here, dentist's office, or I think there were some accountants and lawyers and other folks who had offices in here. So when we did the remodel in 2023, one of the mantras and all the changes has been holding on to history while moving forward. And I think that's really what we tried to do, and try to make the space more comfortable, but keep some of the historic aspects of it, and particularly inside the theater. carpet, wallpaper. We have velvet wallpaper, which people don't put up very often anymore. We have original sconces, which we can show you. So it really is trying to hold on to that history, but make it comfortable for a modern audience.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and so this doorway we're walking through, this was the front door to the church.
This would have been the front door to the church. This remodel, when these doors were made by our resident scenic designer, Derek Smith, the design is our original Barter logo, but when he made the wood stains, because you couldn't do all the wood, it's all indigenous Virginia trees stains. Wow. So he couldn't do the wood out of that because of the way they expand and contract and all that. But the tones themselves and the stains themselves are all indicative of indigenous trees from Virginia.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I would not put that past Derek at all.
So then as you come into the theater, you'll see Bob Porterfield here in all his glory. Without a doubt brought this to this area. These sconces that you'll see on the wall here are from the Empire.
Fantastic.
So these are these beautiful sconces that, again, people don't really produce this sort of stuff anymore. The Empire itself got torn down. Let me get this corrected. 1937, I believe, 1937, but was built in the late 1800s.
Okay.
So you'll see in terms of stylistically and ornateness, obviously, is coming from a...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's right. Yes, that was the Empire seating there, the E. This is original wallpaper.
Oh.
This is why we've kept it. So this was Empire wallpaper as well. So it is fabric wallpaper. You're welcome to touch it, obviously.
I had no clue.
So when they've done all the remodels, in order to do that, we've tried to keep some patches, and we have some other storage stuff in that. So we have upgraded everything to LED, obviously for energy efficiency and stuff, but even the light fixtures here from the Empire, the ones up on the ceiling are also from the Empire. And then the seats have been recreated in style of, but have become a little bit more comfortable and a little larger as well, because seats were much smaller at that point in time.
A comfort during a 2-hour play.
Yes, that is right. That is right. Important. And the wallpaper we had specially made for us so that it mirrored, was an homage to that original wallpaper. Yes. But it's that velvet. And I'll say this, and I'm sure you deal with this with homes all the time. Finding somebody to do wallpaper who does it for a living, it's not an easy task in our area necessarily. And to try to make it seamless, obviously, because these aren't full pieces, but
yeah, and in a world where details like that are sort of erased for gray walls, those needs for those jobs aren't there, and so it's getting more complicated to find people like that.
I think one thing I love these sconces up here too. It might be easier to get them over there. Wow. But the ornateness and the size, and you think of going to the theater in the 1920s and this the essence of it all and the feeling. Fun thing that I think is interesting, the cherubs up here, besides the really large sconces, were actually made to be in likeness of, so they're not original. But the faces, when they were made, are all faces of folks who are part of the big renovation. And so it's an homage to them. So there's a Bob Porterfield. There is a Rick Rose, who was the producer and artistic director here for a long time, and a number of other folks who are a big part of that. So the cherubs are in honor of them.
Robert? I was wondering.
Bob, it's a great question. I think he may be up there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're calling him Bob. Now I went to school with his. I went to school with his grandson, Robert. And
yes.
That's just what I call him.
Well, all of them are for specific folks who are instrumental in the 1995 renovation.
Very cool. Let's head downstairs.
Alrighty.
Then. Again.
So we are a rep style theater, which means we do multiple shows at once. Like right now we have 4 different shows running. So what we're on right now is a set of Frozen. The Temperance Dance Hall would have been in here. At one point in time, the Opera House, Abingdon Opera House ran. And so opera companies would come around to do shows, but famously they would not want to tour here between April and August because of our allergy season. It's so bad. So singers would just refuse to come here. But the opera house ran for a number of years in this space. And as I was saying upstairs, the opera boxes used to come all the way to the edge of the wall here. So then in that 95 renovation, they moved them back.
Very cool. Yeah, I can definitely say we've got the allergens.
Yeah. So the original building would have come all the way this way and stopped where you see this opening at this point. So this would have been the back wall of the building at one point in time. And then this opening was added later.
That has to be one massive steel beam up there.
I would assume it's a massive steel beam, yeah. And it's interesting, if you look through here, this is where all the sets stay when they're not on stage. So there's a drop, what we call a drop, right on this back wall. So audiences never know unless they've been on a tour. But whatever shows on stage is up there, and then whatever shows not on stage is back here. So this is where we store everything while one show is running, and then we rep and change to the other show, either a day, so a Tuesday to a Wednesday, or even if we have a double show day like a Saturday, you may see something in the afternoon and you see something different at night.
Yeah. I've performed here a few times during the Christmas program.
Oh, yeah?
And I noticed back here, the thing you always see in the back of the Barter stage is fake food.
a lot of fake food, a lot of, we always say it's got to look good 20 feet away. So you get up close and it may not always look great, but
That's
from 20 feet away, it looks amazing and looks real. And
we totally thought during one of our performances that the whole table was real back there.
So the area we're going down to now is the dressing room area, and then there's trap rooms. Barter was named the State Theater of Virginia in 1946, which Virginia was the first state in the country to designate a state theater. And so that was us, which is pretty awesome for a small rural town in Southwest Virginia.
It is.
Where Monica's handing into is what we call the trap room. And the trap room is really used for technical reasons for the theater. It's underneath what we call the apron, and basically the beams overhead you see are from there in the ceiling opening are from the original 1831 construction. But there's a pit where musicians will be, or if we want somebody to come up through the floor or disappear through the floor, or you want people to look down into a space, then they would do that here in the trap room. Or melt a witch.
I like that one.
Last year we melted a witch. So there's been a lot of different reasons. In the 1930s, they used it as a temporary holding cell for prisoners.
Wow.
And so what they would do is they would hold them here and then they would move them to wherever they were next. But famously, they would hoot and holler during the shows because they would either hear people on stage or an audience, and so they would want to join in the fun and make their presence known.
And did I also read somewhere that dogs may have been held in here, like game warden or something?
Not that I'm aware of, but absolutely, okay. I'm sure it's been everything. I was reading before we met that when it became City Hall, there was a fire station on the back of this.
Oh.
So there used to be a fire bell on top of the building that would ring during shows because they didn't move it for a number of years. And one of the things is actors would just freeze on stage and wait till it was done and then start again. I think it had become a bell, and then it was a siren at one point in time, I believe.
Wow.
And so that got moved eventually, thank goodness. But there was a review that came out that said it was just part of the charm of going to the Barter, hearing this bell or this siren go off.
That's funny.
Yeah, so the trap room is here, our dressing rooms are here, and then we can go this way to the what we call the famous tunnel.
Woo-hoo, here we go.
I would say the tunnel is probably what I get asked about the most from folks who know about the history of Barter or know about Abingdon. Everybody says, what about that tunnel? What about that tunnel? So we're going down through what our wardrobe area is now.
And here we're seeing all these, look at these cut out, I guess that's a mortise, or is that a tenon? But this is the part that goes into, there would have been a major support beam running across here. It's really neat, 1830s.
And here you can really see, even through the wires and other stuff we've had to do,
this giant beam.
Just to modernize, you can really see the original structure underneath here. And as you were pointing out, this massive support beam here.
Yeah, see, there's one of the holes where those guys would have gone into. So here's the
tunnel. So this is a electrics, what we call an electric storage room. So we have foggers and all of that. But the tunnel itself was built right before or during the Civil War. As you go in there, one of the fun stories to share with you is when the tunnel was discovered by the Union Army, there were 2 Confederates in there that they shot. And so they shot them, and what they say is when they killed them in there and then they collapsed the tunnel, one of them stayed on the Martha side and then one stayed on the Barter side. So they don't say he comes out, but that he sort of stops at that inn. And so during the 95 renovation, they were doing overnight shifts in renovating. And at 3 a.m., there were 3 construction workers taking a break. And all 3 of them collectively at the same time got spooked or scared or had this really bad feeling. And they got up and they ran out. And they called the producing artistic director at the time and said, "We're not going back in there. Give us our paycheck. Give us our tools. We're done." So, whether those are true or not, we don't know. But we get calls all the time for ghost hunters to come down. And there's been a few that have done the paranormal activity stuff down here, and et cetera, et cetera. But it is one of our most famous features for sure.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are many, many stories in Abingdon about workers being run out of buildings by ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
That seems to be the theme here. We've got some angry ghosts in Abingdon.
Well, I've turned on the lights in there for you, so please feel free to climb up in there and see what you can see.
Thank you.
The tunnel is collapsed, and the Martha has closed off their side, so that many folks don't even know where the Martha side was. But you can see back in there a little bit.
Yeah, because the Martha's not directly across the road, so it would have to have angled that way. I would be interested to know where it came in. These steps are so cool. So if you didn't know about this being a tunnel, you might just assume that it was some kind of trench dug for water pipes or something like that. But it is, in fact, very unusual looking, and you can tell it was dug out long ago. Here's one of these giant beams. And, yeah, we are back here. And then here's a chair, probably keeping people from hitting their heads. Oh, there it is, yeah. There's where it's blocked up. And they've run some kind of pole or something in there. Yeah, that is really cool. So I'd be very interested to know, if the original tunnel was just a clay tunnel or if there was some kind of piping in there or what. Yeah, this is the 1830s limestone, all quarried here in this area. And these are just beautiful giant beams. This is cool, folks. We're in a haunted Civil War tunnel here in Abingdon. This is so neat. Under the Barter Theatre. Yeah. Well, it's not too spooky right now, but I'm sure that's different if the lights were out and you were in here at 3 a.m. I'd do it. Watch your head. You got a big old piece of metal behind you. It's tight. Matt said it was. Yeah, this was clearly, dug out for a major purpose. I mean, obviously. Because the Barter, almost the joists almost sit on the ground. There's like very little room. Very cool. You want me to go out first?
Maybe
That would help you.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Like your own Blair Witch project up there.
That's right. Yeah, I just love to see what kind of artifacts might be down here. I'm sure they've hunted. Here's more of the, so here's the, this is interesting that the foundation stops on each side. So they knocked that out. And obviously that brick was put in later. So they actually knocked the whole foundation out to get back in here to do this.
Now was this, didn't we decide that there was like a portico or narthex?
On the back? On the front, yes.
Would
Something
that
like
be
that.
This? Or are we at the back?
We're at the back.
Okay.
Yeah, this is part. This is not the very back. The very back would be the next room.
Okay.
So yeah, all this seems very purposeful. And then they've poured concrete around it. Well,
I will say you guys
cool.
got the inside look, just so anybody watching knows. We don't let people go up there normally, or if you take a tour of the Barter, obviously that's not a part of what you get to do. You do get to come down here if you do the Backstage tour, which is available during the Highlands Fest. We do have some open tour times. I think it's $10 or something like that. And you can come, and a great tour guide who takes you through all kinds of history, and then you can tour the building and come down. But again, just so everybody knows, that's not it's not a normal part.
So now
of
that the play's over,
that's right. Let's go down and see that.
basement?
That's right. It is super interesting, though, certainly for a historian like yourself and somebody who deals in old homes and old buildings, to know like this is such an interesting part of this building. And you think of history, and now we're almost 200 years from the Civil War itself, and you know, this, who even knows all the things that this could have been used for.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is very interesting for sure.
And to think that it was connected to such an even more historic building across the street that's had so many different lives.
Yeah,
in its own history.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you giving us our tour, and it's
course.
abbreviated, so if people come for the tour, they're going to get
they'll get a lot more
really
history. They'll learn a lot more about famous folks who worked at Barter, and other historical facts about Barter, some more detail of when the building was built, sort of its history, Barter's history of how it's come to be. But you know, we're now in our 92nd year, which is pretty amazing through a theater.
You're outlasting most colleges.
We're outlasting some colleges, and just the rich history that is part of Abingdon, and all the way from, you know, even think of the 250 celebration next year, and the history that's part of that we get to celebrate, and then the history of the Civil War, and the history of this theater, and the history of the arts and Abingdon itself. And it's just a really cool feature of living in Southwest Virginia, for sure. And you know, like your stories you've told about your own home, and the different places you've gotten to work in your business.
Yeah, in my business, it's
the walls could talk, right?
Yeah, the reason Bristol's not as interesting as Abingdon is because our house was Bristol. Right. There was nothing there,
right?
And so that's how it dates back that far. But Abingdon was always this interesting old town, and actually, I'm doing a write-up in the newsletter about the whole history of it, and I found out some fascinating stuff I didn't even know.
Well, good.
Yeah. But thank you so much.
So I think we'll end by saying like and subscribe to your channel, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And Barter.
And Barter, yes. BarterTheatre.com.
And Facebook,
Instagram, the website. So yeah, you can just Google Barter Theatre, or you can go to BarterTheatre.com. All the information for tickets and such is there. And then if you ever want a building tour, you can contact us, and we can see what we could arrange.
Love that. Fantastic. Well, thank you all for coming along on this tour. I know If you weren't from Abingdon or didn't know anything about it, it was hopefully interesting. But if you are from the area, you've probably always wondered what this tunnel looked like. Of course, we only saw a very little bit of probably what was a 400-foot long tunnel, but here we are, and we want to thank Matt for showing us around here. So, like I said in the beginning of the video, that I'm Daniel Shue, the Old House Agent. I am on Facebook, I am on TikTok, I am on Instagram and YouTube, and I will also put a link to my newsletter in the comment section of this so you can find out more cool stuff like this, because if I'm not listing an old house, Monica and I are going on some neat event like this almost on a weekly basis. So you all have a nice evening, and I'll see you at the festival.